Good morning. I began this morning's message with a quote from Oscar-winning actress Meryl Streep's speech at a fundraiser for the Human Rights Campaign. I read it because it connects to and reminds us of the spiritual value of diversity and inclusivity that we are considering this month. She said, "We have the right to live our lives with God or without, as we choose. There is a prohibition against the establishment of a state religion in our Constitution. And we have the right to choose with whom we live, whom we love, and who and what gets to interfere with our bodies. As Americans, men, women, people, gay, straight, LGBTQ, all of us have the human right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And she also said in that speech that we owe it to the people who died for our rights, and to those people who died even before they got theirs, their own. We owe it to them to rise up with our voices in support of freedom, equality, and inclusivity. America's beloved poet, Maya Angelou, she wrote a poem, "And Still I Rise." And I share a few stanzas from the poem, selected from it, because they speak out about the resilience and the dreams and the hopes of those who are enslaved, the rising up in them despite the wounding that slavery is. "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I rise. Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slaves. I rise, I rise, I rise." That is just a small portion of the entire poem. And I read it because it reminds me of our topic today, which is God comes through the wound. It refers to those times in life when we do rise, when we become stronger exactly because of the tragedies and the challenges that we face, where we become wiser and greater when we feel life has broken us. And then later, we look back at the experience of a time and realize perhaps we were not broken, but we were broken open so that something powerful, something bright, something new can shine through into this creation, through the cracks that maybe were caused by the experience. This is probably one of the most challenging teachings I learned at the Center for Spiritual Living. One that I both immediately liked and immediately rejected, because it is a paradox. The paradox is this, that out of great tragedy, out of great difficulty and trials, can emerge goodness, connection, meaning. It's a lot to take in. The way I learned it, I read it expressed by a colleague recently in a very powerful way. And keep in mind, this takes gentleness and wisdom to explore. He wrote, "Without exception, all things have worked and are working for my highest good. So I honor it all every season of my life. It's a lot to take in. You may recall that in 2006 in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, a gunman entered an Amish schoolhouse and murdered several children. Now, even for the most avid believer in goodness, this event and events like them present us with a very challenging question. How can that be working for anyone's highest good? Personally, I wouldn't dare try to explain such an event using the words goodness or highest good. I wouldn't be foolish enough to suggest to the parents of slain children or to an enslaved people or to a nation undergoing genocide that they seek out a silver lining. If anything, these life-changing situations prompt me to be respectfully quiet, with humility at the unfathomable complexity of life, and to offer my love and support. The goodness, I find, is not so much in the life tragedies, the events themselves, as it is in the way people love and support each other while they're going through them. It's in the way people rise up from them. It's in the light that shines out from the cracks in them. And even so, calling a tragedy good at all can be a disservice to the people involved. Who can look at the Holocaust or apartheid or war or slavery or torture or forced assimilation of Native American people and call any part of it good? I cannot. Instead, these humanity-shaping events leave us with, if anything, something that I heard a speaker refer to as a dark gift. A gift that comes in the form sometimes of the wisdom to remain vigilant, to never ever allow it to happen again. My colleague, Dr. David Alt, he asks the question, and what do we do with all of the feelings that rise up in us in these times of challenge and tragedy and change? He writes, do we barricade ourselves from their raw presence? Or do we learn to breathe with them and through them, all the while learning that by allowing them the space to flow through us, we go from someone who is broken to someone who is broken open? And I love that reframe. By allowing the space for our feelings, we realize perhaps we are not broken after all. We are broken open so that something new can shine forth from us. You know, today, for many people in our country, our nation feels broken. Many people feel raw, even exhausted, wounded. And I'm trying on this reframe now. Perhaps we are being broken open to release a feeling of unity and equality and freedom we have longed for but not yet experienced. Perhaps it is exactly our longing that is calling forth the light from within us. I can't help but think of a beautiful verse in the second letter to the Corinthians that says, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed, because we stand on the cornerstone of our faith, which is the consciousness that Jesus of Nazareth referred to when he said we are one with the creative power, and when he asked us, know ye not that ye are God's? If anything, we are being woken up, as Meryl Streep said in the same speech. We are being woken up to just how fragile freedom is. And all of it, the poetry, the actress, the teacher, all of it is pointing to this same thing. Don't give up. Not yet. This is not the time. Turn first to the cornerstone of your faith and then rise up from that. About the shooting, the Amish school shooting, in a letter to the Cron, David Capes of Houston wrote, "But before their innocent children were cold, the Amish community was giving us all a lesson in forgiveness by gathering in small groups to pray for the grace to forgive gunman Roberts and to pray for his family. By the end of the day, some even said they had forgiven him and asked the nation to turn their prayers to Robert's wife and family." The Amish are an amazing people, characterized by a simplicity and radical obedience to the gospel, even the part about forgiving your enemies. We don't know why Robert attacked the school girls and then killed himself, but an inability to forgive himself and God seems to have led to a horrible evil. And then later on in the letter, the writer says something that has stuck with me deeply ever since I read it. He said the Amish people did not arrive at this incredible ability to forgive their children's murderer on that one afternoon alone. They got there after many years of practicing their faith, and forgiveness is one of the cornerstones of the Amish way. It's their go-to. It's not just an idea. It has got me to thinking, what are the cornerstone practices of our spiritual life? What is the rock you stand on when times get tough? What is your go-to place in your heart when your life seems broken open? I'm asking myself that right now. What would I describe as the cornerstone of my conviction? Because that is what I will rise up from during the times of feeling broken open. And I'm thinking about that right now because I see some of my acquaintances, people around me, giving up, advocating for anger and violence. I cannot. It's tempting, but I cannot. No, I'm looking to what I have learned at the Center for Spiritual Living that will help me navigate these tumultuous times of change. And they are the cornerstones: affirmative prayer, silence, gratitude, generosity, study, service. And I'm asking myself, what can I do to stay connected to these? You know, today on the internet, there are lists for everything. Lists for how to stay sane during these times. Lists for how to get calm quickly and stay calm. Lists for how to back away from fear and stay in the game. Lists. And I've been reading them. And I've identified some points that they have in common and how these points relate to the cornerstone practices of our faith traditions. And I think they offer some really good advice for times of being broken open. They're simple, but powerful. Number one, self-care. When last did I take a walk in nature? And am I eating? And when I eat, am I eating mindfully and gratefully? And am I eating with the people I love, my family? And am I getting my sleep? And when I do prepare myself for sleep, am I practicing getting there with slowing down practices so that I enter into sleep with the consciousness of peace? And am I remembering to take time daily to center myself, to center my thought in the cornerstone of my faith tradition, which is affirmative prayer? And if you don't know how to do affirmative prayer, pick up a copy of the prayer that we've been printing out all of last month, or go online to our affirmative prayer library and search for a prayer that matches you and use it. The second bit of internet advice: pay attention to your thinking. In particular, these days, be aware of thought paralysis that comes from overexposure to frightening thoughts. You know, overexposure to frightening thoughts can make a person numb, so we get to pay attention to when that level gets to the point of enough. When you've reached enough, then to have the wherewithal to take a break, to take a breath, to take a moment, to step out of the storm, and to take time daily to center yourself in one of the cornerstone practices of your faith tradition: silence, meditation. Guided visualizations are great for this. And I was just remembering that Reverend Joyce and I, like in 2010, we put together a CD called Sleep in Peace, Rise in Joy. And it's a set of guided affirmations so that you could put the CD on first thing in the morning before your feet even touch the floor, so you can ensure that your day is going to start off with the right mindset, you know, with the right setting to keep you in the game. The idea is to pause before you engage and let mental activity come to a rest so that you and I can be open and receptive for the newness, so we can stay in the game. I love the practice of starting the morning with affirmative thought, because it helps me to remember and to trust the natural rising of wisdom in me. And when I do keep practicing starting my day that way, it does become a cornerstone. It becomes a place that I can go to and revisit when life is chaotic. It connects me to the goodness that continues to be present always, which is related to the next bit of internet advice. This: seek out joy and humor and beauty. Here's a secret. During tumultuous times, there is still goodness around. And yet it can easily go unnoted, not paid attention, when things are urgent and chaotic. And when I let my attention be consumed by one side of the story, I cut out half of what is available to feed me and nourish me. I remember reading about an online newspaper that made the experiment of taking one whole week to focus on the positive spin in every story in the news. Their readership plummeted. They said literally nobody wanted to read it. So compelling it is. Now, a cornerstone practice of the Center for Spiritual Living is to practice being grateful. And that is an exercise of noticing what is and continues to be beautiful, what is and continues to be joyful, what is and continues to be good at the very same time. Not to live in denial, but to live in balance. From the internet: delay gratification. Oh, I understand that, because I see it in me and around me, a strong tendency to flee, to hide, to check out, and to call that self-care, when in fact what it is self-numbing. The advice from the web is this: get your stuff handled before you tune out. In other words, get some balance between uptime and downtime, some balance between online time and in-person time. You know what I was thinking? This could be, I think it is, this is a really good time to call up long-lost friends and ask them how they are, not how they voted, how are they? I think this is a really good time to get pen and paper out and think of someone who really loves you and write to them and tell them what that love has done for you. I think this is an excellent time to tidy up your home, your garage, your car, your closet, your finances, your diet. Oh, you'll be delighted with how much spiritual energy is released just with that. See, to me, delayed gratification means watch out for the habit of putting things off until they become urgent. So if you're a writer, write. If you are a parent, parent. If you're a musician, music. If you're a lover, love. Now, another one of the cornerstone practices of our faith tradition is selfless service, and it is a great antidote for selfish focus. It's the idea of doing something for someone else before I slip into self-focused vegetating. And finally, internet wisdom says, be careful with blame, or let's reframe that in affirmative language. Practice right speech. Practice right thinking. Be mindful of the habit of complaining without taking action. And unless you're going to do something about it, watch all that grumbling about it and ask myself, what am I really adding to the world? Instead, maybe pick up a postcard outside in the social hall and write a note to your elected leaders, and some of them deserve notes of appreciation and thanks. Others need to know what's on your heart. I can't tell you what to write, but I encourage you to do so. And let your right thinking and your right speaking take you back to a cornerstone practice of your faith tradition. Spiritual mind treatment means affirmative prayer in which we are not beseeching God for anything, but in which we are centering our thoughts on the highest good we can attain, to remind ourselves daily of our spiritual values and to synchronize our actions and our thoughts and our minds and our hearts to the creative power that lives through us. And here's an example of how to do it. So I invite you to breathe in and to exhale and let your eyes close. As you imagine with me that these words that I speak are your own words, in your own voice, in the silence of your own mind, perhaps first thing in the morning or last thing at night. I have complete confidence that Spirit within me guides me and leads me into the pathway of peace. I free myself from every sense of condemnation, either against myself or against others. I release every sense of animosity. I know that I am not limited by anything that has happened or by anything that is now going on. Every moment, I am entering an entirely new set of experiences. Spirit, which has no limits, is flowing through my thought into my actions. And I am guided by the same intelligence which scatters the moonbeams across the waves and holds the forces of nature in place. I am aware that the Spirit of truth is in me and is making me free from any belief in limitation of any kind. There is no doubt or uncertainty in my mind, for it is a well-made mind, made by a perfect Spirit, and so I have a feeling of security. And I have a feeling of the ability to do anything that I ought to do. So consciously, I draw upon the energy of Spirit to live my life. Peace is forever chanting its hymn of praise at the center of my being. I lay aside all anxiety, all striving, and let the law of divine love operate through me into my affairs. Joyfully, soulfully, I anticipate a greater experience of unity, connection, and love. And joy wells up within my mind, and life sings its song of ecstasy in my heart.